It's done. We finally have the build fully assembled. We got our capture card in here. Tfue's streaming PC is now set up. I still maintain that his streaming PC actually doesn't have the Elgato, which doesn't make any sense. He probably put it into that $20,000 build just to kind of show it off. And then he put it into a streaming PC. I'm actually really confused by why he had things set up the way he did, because I doubt he's gaming on this. But we'll talk about that in just a second. And we're gonna discuss the reason why, even though Tfue's streaming build is a little wacky, it's a little backwards, it's actually all not that stupid. I'm stupid for saying the sentence like that. So let's talk about today's video sponsor. Future Brett here. We don't have Tfue's build anymore because I got rid of it. Anyways, let's talk about today's video sponsor, which is Honey, my friends. If you haven't heard of Honey, they are this simple to use browser extension that helps you to save money on the internet. Whether you're buying at Best Buy, you're going to the Razer store, or fun fact, it even supports Linus Tech Tips merch store, which I purchased something from there just a little bit ago, and I'm waiting for my mother-in-law to come to South Africa so I can finally get my dope Linus Tech merch. Anyways, that's not the point. Honey works like magic, where they automatically scan to see what is the best discount that you can get, whether you're buying anywhere on the internet. I used it for my Mother's Day present for my mother-in-law. Boy, howdy, was I able to get her a good gift, but then I also didn't have to spend as much. It's bad that I'm admitting that I saved money on my mother-in-law's present, but that's what I'm doing. You can go to joinhoney.com/UFDtech. You can join the over 10 million people who have already started saving a bunch of money with Honey, and you can do it because it's free and easy to install on your computer in just 2 clicks. So shop with confidence. Get Honey for free at joinhoney.com/UFDtech. That's joinhoney.com/UFDtech. Honey, the smart shopping assistant that saves you time and money. And big thanks to Honey again for sponsoring this video. Okay, so obviously a lot of the discussion that I've seen on the other videos that we've posted surround the fact that he's using a 9900K with a GTX 1060. What the frick is that about? That's kind of the sentiment that I'm hearing. I also have a huge issue with the Z370 motherboard, or Z390 motherboard. No, it's 70, right? Yeah, that's why I'm upset.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you will, look right here.
It's a crappy Z370 motherboard that's not meant to handle the 9900K. Except when you're using something like a GTX 1060, because you can see, my friends, that while the 1060 is definitely not on par with the 9900K as far as like what you're spending. I mean, the CPU costs more than the GPU, so that's a little out of whack. But one of the things that we discovered, and I kind of realized while I was benchmarking, was the fact that it makes the system 100% GPU bottlenecked. And when you're streaming, more or less, most streamers aren't going to be using their GPU to stream, but rather their CPU. So if you create a severe bottleneck, you about know what frame rate you're gonna get when you're playing the game than if you play the game and stream it at the same time. So we ran those benchmarks with this PC, and we're gonna discuss that. First up, thermals. This thing ran like a champ. The GPU got up to something like 68 degrees because it was always at 100% load. CPU, I never saw it go above 60 because it was always just at 3.6 gigahertz, which is its base clock, because it never had a freaking reason to ever work with the 1060 in there. And the Cooler Master Hyper 212X, totally fine for the 9900K when it's running at stock. And the Asus Z370 motherboard, totally fine when it's running at stock, which is all this CPU ever had to do to keep up with that crappy 1060 that's in there, I'll tell you what. So let's talk about benchmark numbers, because that's what you came here for. How does Tfue's build actually perform? So we went through our typical benchmarking suite with this Tfue build, as well as added in Fortnite, because that's what Tfue is known for. I looked up like his most recently played games, and most of it's Fortnite, and then there was also Super Seducer, and I don't think we need to benchmark that. Non-streaming, so this is just playing the game itself at ultra settings. So these are the highest settings that you could possibly set. Assassin's Creed Odyssey was a 52 FPS average. Far Cry New Dawn was about 70 FPS, and that was with HD textures on. The Division 2, we got about 54. Strange Brigade, using the Vulkan API, was 77. Hitman 2 was 73. Final Fantasy 15 was 51. Shadow of the Tomb Raider, 56. Middle-earth Shadow of War, also 56. Metro Exodus, 18.6. Resident Evil 2, 89.6, and Devil May Cry 5, 128 FPS. And again, this is at the highest possible quality settings that you could get. We're not even just talking high, we're talking ultra, plus everything added on top of that. So the 1060 does really well. You can even drop settings to high, and more or less you're always going to be able to hit 60 FPS in most games. Metro Exodus is a huge exception there because its extreme setting is just, it wrecks everything. Even a 2080 Ti, it's not even fun to play that game if you're trying to play it. Like, you have to go medium on that. Anyways, then we also tested Fortnite. We averaged about 85 FPS across the multiple games that we played. Not too shabby, but let's talk about what happened when we actually set the computer to stream and game at the same time. We ran benchmarks like that because what good is a streaming build if it can't stream and game at the same time? And what we saw was roughly a 10% decrease in performance because the GPU did need to allocate some resources to the actual streaming process. But the CPU never really had to work hard at all. So the bottleneck is definitely the GPU, but it's not awful, especially again at the ultraest settings that you could possibly get. Assassin's Creed Odyssey was 46, Far Cry New Dawn was 63, Division 2 was 47.8, Strange Brigade was 69.7, Hitman was 65.7, Final Fantasy 15 was 48, Shadow of the Tomb Raider was 50.2, Middle Earth Shadow of War 50.7, Metro Exodus went from 18 to 17. Resident Evil 2 was 81.4, Devil May Cry 5 was 113, and then in Fortnite we actually saw the least performance drop, going from 85 non-streaming down to 80.7 while streaming, so that's only a 5% drop. The worst offender out of all of these was with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. That came to a 12% decline, but on average it was about 7 to 10% depending on the game that we were playing, which actually isn't too big of a decrease. And if you consider the fact that the whole point of this is that you're streaming and you want to know what quality are you going to get when you're streaming, having an overkill CPU kind of allows you to do that. You're not going to be losing all that much performance if you set it to a place where, let's say, even if you cap the frame rate at 60, and you set it to just medium to high settings on all of the games that you're playing, then you would be able to actually know exactly how it's going to perform, because you're not going to be bottlenecked by the GPU. You could get that to run at like 75% if you have, you know, a VSync on. Running at lower settings with a capped frame rate means that you know exactly what you're getting. The GPU is not going to be the bottleneck in the game. Your frame rate's going to be the bottleneck, and thereby you have enough headroom on the GPU to do everything, and your CPU is going to be 100% fine all of the time. And not only can you have things like your game open, but then you can have your stream open with your chat, with whatever you want to do on a web browser, have music playing. The 9900K actually does make a ton of sense with a 1060, spending $200 to $250 on a graphics card, and then spending about $400 to $550 depending on the day for the 9900K actually could make quite good sense with all of the extra cores and the IPC improvement that you get from Intel in this scenario. So while I needlessly mocked Tfue's build for having this weird matchup, it kind of does make sense in a streaming context. It is definitely a mismatch in terms of proportion, but at the same time, there's justification to it. If you're trying to stream 60 FPS, this PC can actually do it. Maybe not at the highest settings, but again, even if you're streaming, your bitrate is not going to be able to pump out the highest quality settings to everybody. That's going to be the limiting factor. So you can actually drop your quality settings on your gameplay, and it will likely look the same to whoever's actually watching your stream on Twitch, because you're not going to be streaming at 25 megabits per second. At least most people wouldn't. So that's basically it. This is the end of our Tfue series, where we looked over the streaming PC that he actually uses, the gaming PC that he got that's worth $20,000 that came from Digital Store, and we can't recreate it. But even some of you had mentioned that it actually stays at the Faye's house and it doesn't actually go home with him, and that's not his normal streaming setup. I'll have to look into that. If you guys have any sources about how we can find what his actual gaming system is, that would be super helpful, because as we proved in the first episode, what they put on Twitch is 100% a lie. Obviously, we did have to change a few things. Their 460X, his 460X was a custom one by Digital Storm with the Digital Storm plate there. His RAM was Digital Storm. And then also, supposedly, at least he had an Elgato, but you know, we have this AverMedia Live Gamer 4K, which is everything that the Elgato 4K 60 can do, but it has RGB. So that makes it better. It could do 1080p to 240 hertz recorded and pass through, and it could do 4K 60 HDR. This is actually a pretty good thing, and that's just its like soft candy setting. So it's really delicious. Hey friends, Future Brett here. This is a completely different system. Yeah, we're that far in the future. Anyways, I've been mulling over the issue with Tfue's capture card, and I think I finally figured it out. So the display on his giant, super expensive $20,000 system, it says one of the displays is the 4K 60 Pro, which would make sense if he's outputting from the graphics card into the 4K 60 Pro onto the streaming PC that's at the Tfue's house. It makes sense that way. For this video and the previous other videos, and in fact, nobody even said this in the comment on the last video, but I was an idiot, and I think I finally figured it out. It's an output. It's displaying to that as opposed to actually having it in the system. Makes genius sense, okay? I figured it out, friends, so you didn't have to, but I said it so many times during this video that we're gonna have comments about it. The end of Future Brett, bye. That's gonna be it for this video. Don't forget that today's video is brought to you by, go check out Honey. This is a dope computer. You could probably save a few bucks on Best Buy if you're trying to pick up. Anyways, Cooler Master sells stuff at Best Buy now. You can use Honey to check and see. Anyways, join honey.com/UFD Tech. 2 clicks, then you're off to the money saving races. So hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Let us know what other streamer you want us to check out down in the comments. We're keen to hear from you. Do you have any suggestions about how we can make this series better? Any other parts that we may have missed that Tfue actually uses on the regular and not just a lie from his Twitch page? I'm keen to hear everything you have to say down in the comments down below. Don't forget to get subscribed to stay up to date on our streaming stuff, our tech related content, and yeah, I'm Brett with the UFD Tech channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see your smiling faces again in the next video. Love you too. Goodbye. Bye bye.